In 2003, Capcom developed and released Viewtiful Joe as an exclusive for the Nintendo GameCube. The plot of the game with Viewtiful Joe was that there is the Earth, or the real world, and Movieland, a fictional place where most of the game takes place in. Joe takes his girlfriend Sylvia out on a date to a movie theater to watch a picture show featuring the superhero Captain Blue. The villain of the film seemingly defeats Blue and actually reaches out of the screen to abduct Sylvia. Attempting to help her, Joe is also taken into the movie land. Deciding to save Sylvia and defeat the villain, Shadow, Captain Blue gives Joe a watch that gives him abilities just like Captain Blue himself. Joe later saves Sylvia, and through the plot of the game, it's revealed that Sylvia is the daughter of Captain Blue, and she also requests a watch from her father, so the pair of Joe, Viewtiful Joe, and Sylvia, later called Sexy Sylvia, together from future threats. The concept of Viewtiful Joe was well received at the time, as critics and gamers thought the idea of a superhero being that of Joe was fresh and new from a possible new franchise by Capcom, but since it was an exclusive game to the GameCube, it didn't sell much copies due to the problems that the GameCube had for Nintendo. Later it was re-released on the Sony PlayStation 2 to more of a gaming audience. Due to the surprise success of the video game, a short-lived Japanimation based on this series was made and broadcasted in Japan from 2004 through 2005, taking place shortly after the events of the first game. A sequel, being that of Viewtiful Joe 2, was released in 2014, but due once again to problems on the GameCube, the game sold modestly, and was also later released on the Sony PlayStation 2 once again. In 2005, based on the Japanimation mostly, and with minor influence from the previous two games, a third game called Red Hot Rumble was released. The game received mixed reviews from critics and gamers. Once again, owing to the problems of the GameCube, the United States version of the game had in-game advertisements for an American fast food restaurant chain depicted in the game. In 2006, a fourth game called Double Trouble was released for the handheld Nintendo DS. The game was rated well by critics but sold poorly and had mixed reactions from gamers and analysts. It's interesting to know that Viewtiful Joe's popularity was only marginalized at best in Japan and Western gaming markets. It could be considered slightly ahead of its time, and the franchise was conceived, developed, and released right before the modern era of superhero media commenced with Iron Man and the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2008. Nothing else from Viewtiful Joe was heard afterward for a number of years. But in 2012, when Capcom first announced the development of the Wii game, the Wonderful 101, it was called Project P100, as certain officials from the development of the Viewtiful Joe games collaborated together for the first time in years. Analysts noticed that all aspects and details from the game had many similarities from the Viewtiful Joe games, and later on some fans theorized that the Wonderful 101, released in 2013, is a spiritual successor of Viewtiful Joe in some shape or form. In 2017, there were more interests in rebooting the Viewtiful Joe franchise, but at that time nothing came of it. Some commentators mentioned that Viewtiful Joe was never that of a real serious franchise, but rather a trend of games that gathered mixed support from gamers and mixed reactions from critics. This neutrality never helped Viewtiful Joe in any real way. Sometimes a character can be forgotten, but not exactly having the support of others for a possible remembrance.